If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This has been another episode sponsored by Online Horse College. If you haven't had a look at the wide variety of equine-specific accredited courses, then go to onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there. Sophie Barrington and Archer Creative are the experts in equine marketing, and Sophie understands how to achieve success in the horse industry, providing innovative and outcome-driven marketing services that result in a dramatic effect to your bottom line. Go to horsechats.com, search for Sophie, search for Barrington, or search for Archer Creative to find out a little bit more about Sophie Barrington, Archer Creative, and how they can help you. Today we've got Camilla Whishaw. Camilla is an equine naturopath. Now, she's highly experienced. She's in demand globally. She's worked overseas. She's spent several years overseas working and collaborating with some of the world's best equine vets and health practitioners. She believes it's important to educate and empower horse owners to help them make the most informed and beneficial choices for both their horses and themselves. And we're going to find out a little bit more about that today. So, Camilla, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Glenys. How are you today?
Oh, very well. Now, I had a quick chat to you beforehand about your being an equine naturopath.
Yeah.
You know, we sort of talk about naturopathy and naturopathy.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit, before we even get started, the correct terminology, what we should be using and what, you know, is also an accepted terms.
Look, most of us, most naturopaths and most of us in the industry tend to say naturopathy.
Okay.
But it can be a bit of a tongue twister. So you're quite entitled to say naturopathy, naturopathy. So whatever comes out easiest. And if you can say either of those without getting stuck midway through pronouncing the word, you're doing a very good job.
Sometimes it's easier just to call you an equine naturopath.
That's right. And that's what most people tend to do.
All right. Now, Camilla, we're going to start you off with a favourite quote. What would you say?
I loved "She believed she could, so she did." And we can also take a male version of that. He believed he could, so he did. But, I think "she believed she could, so she did" certainly resonates very well with me.
Yes, and I think talk to a lot of people and they say, yep, you've got to, you know, there's a lot to do with mind power and to do with believing you can before anything's going to happen anyway.
That's certainly right. And certainly anything with horses and in the industry, backing yourself and giving yourself the opportunities to succeed and do the very best you can be.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask you not necessarily how you started with horses, but how you got started with your naturopathy. You did a naturopath qualification and you combined it with your equine skills. How did you get the idea to do that?
It was through some of my own personal health challenges. In my final couple of years of school, I got very sick. I had a virus similar to glandular fever, and sort of being the highly driven and motivated person I was, kept pushing through, didn't give my body the resources it needed to recover, and ended up developing chronic fatigue syndrome amid quite a few other things. And I had quite bad fibromyalgia, and I'd gone from being an incredibly active, energetic, athletic individual to being absolutely exhausted, bedridden and in constant pain. And there was nothing that conventional medicine could do for me. Mm-hmm. And I was put in touch with a very good practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine. The philosophies and principles of that differ somewhat to naturopathy, but through regaining my health and well-being, through that treatment, it really opened my eyes to the world of naturopathy and natural health, and I knew I wanted to go down that path after that experience and study that. But I was somewhat torn in that I'd always grown up working with horses on our family property, and I loved horses, and part of me really just wanted to go home and run the family stud. And then as time and experience went on, I saw that there were so many applications in the human world, in human medicine, in human naturopathy that overlapped so much with equine health, equine medicine.
Yep.
And that there was a real place in the market for someone with my combined knowledge and skills to really make a positive impact.
Yep.
So it was combining my skills and my passions and putting myself in situations where I could continue to develop and grow and acquire the information and resources and skills I need to really pursue this as a path.
It's good, isn't it? You know, the equine world has developed so much, and the fact that you can bring two skills together to improve the world of horses, it makes it a perfect career.
Oh, it does indeed. It does indeed. And, you know, it's exciting. A lot of the things we've known and practiced for a long time in naturopathy take quite a while to be recognised in the human, in the pharmaceutical and medical world. And then there's a follow-on from that. So sort of in the last few years that in the equine world, in the last few years, everyone's got excited about the equine gut microbiome and the significance that may play in things like inflammation and immune health, fertility, things like that. We've known and we've been practicing those things in the world of naturopathy. Naturopaths have known this, you know, and been practicing it for 30, 40 years.
Yes.
Human medicine caught up with it sort of 10 or 12 years ago, and now we're jumping on it in equine medicine. So in many senses, sort of traditional naturopathic practices and what we know in human medicine are often several steps ahead of the equine world. So it's fantastic to be able to put these things into practice with your clients, with your patients, get the results. And then often it's several years later that the research then comes along, equine specific, to back it up. But it's been foundational to success in a lot of my cases for quite some time.
That's good. That's good. Yes, very cutting edge.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Yeah. Now, because it is, you know, a bit, I don't want to say woo-woo because it's been scientifically proven, a lot of the stuff that you're doing, but it's still a bit different. Do you get people who've been with horses all their life and they say, oh, I've been with horses all my life and, you know, I never needed any of that fancy stuff. Do you get that or not?
Look, I do, and I'm also very much, you know, there are woo-woo practitioners, as much as I hate to say it, but there are woo-woo practitioners in all different fields of natural medicine, and whether that's body work, whether that's chiropractors or osteopaths or masseurs, but there are also those who are very, very good and very knowledgeable and skilled in their field. And although naturopathy can be seen as woo-woo, I'm very much of the training and the opinion that we need to take a scientific evidence-based medicine approach. And so I can sometimes be seen as quite sort of more scientific and more conventional in some senses in my approach.
Yep.
And I'm very much of the opinion that any treatment I give a horse or any part of a therapeutic treatment plan, it needs to have clear and concise therapeutic implications as to why I'm using it, and I need to have clear treatment aims and goals as to why I'm using a specific herb or nutrient. So whenever I'm treating a horse and doing a treatment plan, I will clearly go through the pathophysiology of what's happening with the horse. So quite oftentimes I'll work in collaboration with different veterinarians and other practitioners. You'll have a clear understanding of the disease process or what inflammatory pathways we need to target or what's happening to the health of the joint. And then with that, I look at specific herbs and nutrients that will target those specific pathways. So rather than just going, you know, here's some devil's claw and a bit of this and a bit of that, let's fix your horse. I'll go, well, we need to target the COX-2 or COX-1 inflammatory pathways. We want to down-regulate arachidonic acid pathways, or whatever the condition is you're treating. I get quite scientific and quite specific with it. So I think that definitely brings credibility to what I do and certainly steers me away from being sort of a more woo-woo practitioner.
I suppose thinking of our listeners, thinking, what we're going to talk about today, and they may decide to look at naturopathy or naturopathy. If they're thinking about it, they really should be going to someone who's got a scientific background, who looks at evidence-based research rather than just what they feel at the time. Is that sort of the main message there?
Certainly. And often, I'll come in on cases that are quite complex. The owner's seemingly exhausted all options for treatment for their horse and they're at wit's end. And I think we all do what we believe is in the best interest for our horses, and we want to do everything we can. And as such, owners will reach out and have tried some of the most ridiculous things, and it upsets me at times to see, out of wanting to do the best for their horse, what owners have spent and gone through without any real understanding of why they've put a supplement. And you just think, you've wasted all this money without getting anywhere, but it's not surprising you haven't got anywhere because, how can these different applications actually really work? So I think it's very important that you have any practitioner you have has significant training and experience. For me, having a bachelor degree, I hold in very high regard, and that I'm also a professional associate member of natural medicine groups, which are very strict on their qualification requirements and your ongoing professional training and membership. That's really important to me because a lot of alternate therapies, there's lack of regulation in the industry, so people can sort of call themselves a certain practitioner without necessarily having suitable qualifications behind them.
Now, take out the equine out of naturopath. What if to someone that just says, "Are you a doctor? Are you what? Describe what a naturopath does."
So, a naturopath is someone who helps to promote optimal health and well-being, whether it be in a person or an animal, primarily using natural therapies such as Western herbal medicine, nutraceuticals, so therapeutic grade nutritional supplements, and looking at dietary, lifestyle and management interventions. That's guided by several principles. One of them being one of the most important ones is first do no harm. So any treatment you look to implement or any adjustment you look to make to a patient, you've got to be very confident you're not going to cause them harm doing that. Another thing is we always treat the individual, not the disease. So although you need a very good understanding of a specific disease process a horse is undergoing, so it might be you have a horse with Cushing's disease or PPID, as we should refer to it. You need a clear understanding of what's happening to that and how your drugs such as pergolide address that. But you also need to look at the horse in front of you and understanding as a whole what is happening for that horse, because that's where a lot of my success as a practitioner comes, and a lot of successes the naturopathic practitioners achieve is because it's not one size fits all. You're treating an individual, so the factors that have contributed to one individual's health state is going to be very, very different to another. And although there will always be modalities of different treatment plans that overlap, there are also key significant differences from case to case. So treating each individual is very, very important. So that's, another one of our key treatment aims.
Yep. I know you're a strong advocate for working in conjunction and collaboration with conventional veterinarians practices where it's appropriate for the horse.
I certainly am. Vets are amazing, and what the work they do is amazing. And I think, I don't think I know, I experience it all the time. Together we can help each other support the work that each other's doing, optimise the results that we achieve, and in the long term get the very, very best outcome for the horse. So there are things vets will always be able to do that I can't through conventional medicine, and there will similarly be things I can do that they wouldn't necessarily be able to without specific herbs and nutrients, and having the time and the knowledge to go through different applications of looking at therapeutic nutrition and different ways we can intervene in different cases. So the work very much complements each other.
If someone as a career is interested in going down this path, I mean, you're obvious about, get qualified, keep doing your research, keep up to date, stay in the professional associations. Is there anything else that you would like to say to them?
Probably, as with any facet of the horse industry, I think you need to be open and willing to learn.
Okay, yes.
You need to be very prepared to put in the hard work. Heads down, thumbs up.
Yep.
I'm very fortunate in that I've also got a very strong practical background in hands-on horsemanship. And I think that has served me very, very well. It's certainly given me respect in the industry. And it's also given me an intimate understanding of, where things are naturally normal for a horse or behavioural issues, being able to read a horse and differentiate those things from, say, a horse that's not well, or just picking up on those subtle things. So I think a strong horse foundation or horse experience foundation is important.
Did your foundation come from your late father? Do you think that was the main influence there?
Early on, he certainly was a significant influence.
Yep.
He himself had no formal background or training. He was very, very much self-taught, and he got into the industry and into working with horses quite sort of relatively late in life, in his sort of early 20s, whereas I suppose a lot of us are lucky enough to grow up with horses from the get-go. So definitely he was an influence, although I didn't really realise how much he was at the time until I look back. And I suppose with my working background and the travel I've been able to do and the experiences I've had, I've been incredibly fortunate to have picked up so many little pearls of wisdom, different things from different people. And, a lot of these people are just, when I say just, they're not just, but they're, stud hands or strappers or people at stables or a vet tech or a vet assistant. And you learn from some of the biggest and best people in the industry, but you also pick up some of the most practical and handy little pearls of wisdom from people you'd least expect. And combining that information and those experiences together, you just develop a fantastic pool of resources. So I've been incredibly fortunate to have had great influences from all around the world, from all different levels of experience and abilities. And for that, I'm eternally grateful for. And it's certainly helped to shape me into the practitioner I am.
Tell us about, I'm thinking about the horses and horses that might have influenced you, but do you have a case study or a horse that you'd like to talk about that you think has helped you in your career? Certainly.
There's certainly been a couple of stallions with major fertility issues.
Yep.
And in sensitivity to confidentiality to some of the studs I've worked with. I won't name those stallions. But one of them had significant immune complications as well as a sudden drop-off in fertility. the stud was obviously very, very concerned about his fertility levels as being an incredibly valuable stallion. So they'd tried quite a few different things, conventional medications, a few, I say in inverted commas, natural supplements, with no success. And again, I came in a fresh eyes looking at this horse as a holistic case, so looking what he was receiving nutritionally, the medications he'd been on, the management practices, stresses he had in his life. I was looking at the fact that, you know, this horse was also overweight, which we know affects fertility through inflammation and through decreasing testosterone levels, inadvertently through increasing estrogen levels in the stallion. So pulling together all the factors of this case, long story short, was after treatment, I had him on several months of treatment leading into the stud season, went on and had his highest level of fertility ever.
Wow.
And this was an aging stallion. Mm-hmm. Previous to that, they'd had to limit his booking numbers were open right up. So that was a really, really satisfying case.
Good.
And to see the transformation in the horse himself, when I started with him, he was overweight, lacking muscle tone, was really quite cranky, just looked like a depressed fat horse. Mm-hmm. And the change in not only his character, his nature, his energy levels, his muscular tone, his skin, the chronic infections he'd been battling on and off cleared up. It was a completely rejuvenated horse in front of you. And then obviously from the stud point of view, the fact that his fertility levels went up amazingly.
Yes.
That was the result that we're concerned about. And obviously that was a very, very important part of the treatment.
Yeah.
But, that was just the icing on the cake. There have been several other stallions since too, and I think this reminds, just a nice way to remind treating each horse as an individual. Mm-hmm. All these stallions had fertility issues, but we look, as a naturopath, I look at the different elements of their fertility issues. So is it that they've got low testosterone levels? Is it that their sperm has poor motility? Is it that the sperm has poor morphology? Key differences in those contributors to infertility will really dictate the treatment I give them. So again, all these stallions, there were overlapping elements of treatment that were the same, but there were also different herbs and nutrients I used, and different applications in the different stallions because I was targeting different therapeutic aims.
Yep.
But always turning a stallion's fertility around is really, really satisfying because usually, A, you're one of the last resorts brought in, and B, because there's such a huge financial impact, certainly for your more in-demand stallions, especially in the thoroughbred industry, and especially for those bigger studs. So I love those cases. But in saying that, I've had some equally rewarding cases, for horses that may be of very little financial value but mean the world to their owners. The backyard pony who's been chronically laminitic or sort of been quite crippled with neurological changes. Some of the turnarounds in some of those cases have been quite humbling and, again, really, really rewarding, and especially when you see how much it means to their owners who, often their horses are children to them.
Yes. What about when you get called in, especially to these big studs? Is it that they've had vets and the vets have referred you on? How does that work?
Often it's by word of mouth. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's referral. I find more so overseas it's referral than here in Australia. Here in Australia it sort of tends to be more word of mouth, whereas overseas I'm fortunate enough to have several vets that will effectively develop a bit of a waiting list for when I go over and have cases that they refer me onto when I visit.
Yep.
But I think we're a bit behind the ball game here in Australia, and we're still a bit guarded and hesitant in our practices. I think so often it's when people are at a stage of desperation and they feel they've exhausted their options, and they'll go, well, you're our last chance. We'll give you a go. We've got nothing to lose.
Yes.
But those sort of cases are incredibly rewarding, and usually you've got so many things you can work with by that stage that make a difference, a positive difference, that it's great. But it is funny, a couple of vets I work with go, doesn't it upset you that, you see the horse at this state where if you'd seen it months ago before everything else had happened, that, you could have got a much easier case to work with? And I go, yeah, but it's really rewarding to come in at this stage. And I think people then really realise what you do works, and they really have an appreciation for it.
Yep.
But I like to work in collaboration where I can, because I think it benefits everyone. There will be cases where the owners or managers will call me in independently. So I work with what works best.
Yep.
In each situation.
What do you think is a common problem? I'm just thinking of a lesson for our listeners. Is there's something that is a common problem, or is it different, as you say, different with every horse?
It's really, really different. Like, I see so many variations of conditions I treat, whether they be illnesses or injuries. Often there are a lot of immune cases or cases with horses that are starting to thrive or just don't look well, but, they've had bloods run and everything's normal, and they've tried them on ulcer programs and nothing's improved. Or I get a lot of those sort of cases.
Yep.
I get a lot of chronic cases of infertility or subfertility, both in mares and stallions. And I tend to get a lot of osteoarthritic cases and joint cases, joint health cases.
What sort of things do you do for those, like the arthritic cases? What do you do? What can people learn if you're a little bit too far away to get to ask? What can they do for their own horses?
So it's looking at everything holistically. There are several nutrients, things like glucosamine, chondroitin, your omega-3 fatty acids, specifically your EPA and DHA, things like that, which can be implemented effectively. There are brilliant herbs which you select depending on the case, bless you. Things like devil's claw and turmeric and things like that. But we need to look at things in a holistic perspective. So I can go and give a horse, the best omega-3 fatty acids, but if they're not in a form that the horse is able to readily metabolise and digest and utilise, then they're going to have very little therapeutic effect. The same thing is if you come in and supplement omega-3s, yes, they will be beneficial. But if your horse is on an incredibly high-fat diet that's rich in omega-6s, that's going to be promoting inflammation in the horse. So you can give all the therapeutic intervention you want, but if you're not addressing concurrent and sustaining factors, you're not going to achieve the very best results you can. So the more in cases of arthritic horses, if your horse is a horse that you ride sporadically, but when you ride him, you expect him to do a lot, well, it's no surprise that you're going to contribute to the inflammatory process and the pain. And again, you want to be looking at maintaining that horse at a healthy weight, because if they're overweight, they're going to be producing more inflammatory mediators, and they're also going to have more weight and stress going through the joints. It's looking at any medications you might have the horse on routinely that are modifying your inflammatory pathways and or disrupting your bowel flora, which we know is going to contribute to inflammation. So I think I find it sometimes upsetting or frustrating when people think there's just one magic pill or potion or nutrient or herb that will fix or resolve a problem. And again, I think that's a really important part I play in educating the clients of all the different factors that contribute and all the different areas where they can make positive changes. And I think it's also an area we need to be focusing on too, because marketing in our industry has got so specialised and so effective that people are led to believe that, you know, if they just give this herb or this tonic or this nutrient, then all their problems, all their horses' will go away. But we need to be able to read behind that and look at the evidence supporting it and look at its overall application. Because, again, you can give a horse the most expensive, best therapeutics, but if they can't metabolise and absorb and utilise them, then it makes for very expensive urine or very expensive manure. And again, the best nutrients can't offset poor management practices, which contribute to a disease state. So it's looking at all the factors we can address to optimise that horse's health and wellbeing and performance. One of my key takeaways is there's no single magic supplement or treatment, I believe, for any condition that can be sustained for long-term beneficial effects.
Okay. Yep. If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now. Have a look. horsechats.com. I'm just thinking, do you have an option if people are overseas or would like to talk to you, if they call you, and do phone consults or video consults or anything like that?
I do phone and online
good.
and email consults. I take a very, very thorough case history in those. I like constant updates and photos and videos. And although certainly I think it's more beneficial to be there in person and see the horse for yourself, I do have remote clients I work with and whose horses we've achieved fantastic results with doing things remotely. So, again, it's about making the best of the situation at hand. And for some people that means, you know, consulting over line and remotely. And again, those sort of cases when you've got an open-minded vet or other practitioners on board, I love to get their input and thoughts in on those sort of cases too. So I think, you know, I certainly place a great deal of importance about being open with all practitioners involved in communicating your treatment goals and possible interactions that different herbs, nutrients and drugs may all have with each other. What are you looking forward to now? You know, I mean, I know that you're open-minded and you're sort of always researching new methods, but is there anything else that you're looking forward to that you're possibly doing in the near future? Definitely continuing to consult locally, nationally and globally, and maybe look at consulting a bit more in Europe. I do quite a bit in the US, a bit in New Zealand and a bit here. I'd love to collaborate with more practitioners here in Australia and particularly Victoria. Certainly I'm very, very fortunate with those that I already currently collaborate with, vets and other practitioners. But I think the more people that can work in conjunction with each other and are open-minded and helping educate each other, the better. So I'd certainly love to keep developing that. Down the track, I'd love to implement educational components of, you know, different therapeutic interventions, feed management practices, the use of supplements in different horse educational programs, pony clubs, that area, because I think teaching people basics, what to look out for, things they can do on an individual scale safely, I think that's a really, really great foundation to start. So getting involved in some of those areas more so, I'd love to do. And I think definitely down the track, getting involved in more research programs myself and directing some research studies in universities and things like that. That's something I'm really looking forward to. So that's sort of the direction I'm headed. But first and foremost, I love my consulting. I'm a horse girl. I love being hands-on. I love seeing the results in front of me. But I'm fortunate that there are so many avenues to explore and to get stuck into. So, yeah, I'm excited for a lot of things.
All right, and I'm just going to ask you before we go, just to sum your philosophy up. And I know that your horses are individuals. You've already made that very, very clear that every horse is an individual case. But if you're going to sum up the whole idea of being an equine naturopath, helping horses, what would you say?
I'd say it's all about optimizing equine health, well-being and performance, using a holistic and integrated approach, combining your scientific evidence-based medicine and traditional naturopathic practices. And as you've so brilliantly wrapped up, treating each horse as an individual in front of you. So, that's my philosophy.
Okay, Camilla, if people would like to contact you, what's the best way?
They can jump on the web and visit my website, www.optimequine. That's all one word, so optimequine.com. They can email me, Camilla, CAMILLA, @optimequine.com. They can also jump onto Facebook and follow Optimequine on Facebook. I often post sort of little handy snippets of research or information or tips or things to consider on there. And on my webpage, you will find my email and my phone number. So if you didn't write the email down, if you jump on the website, you can easily click on contact me. So, yeah, please feel free to get in touch.
All right. And if you missed those details, they'll be on horsechats.com/Camilla Whishaw, or else just go to horsechats.com, search for Camilla or search for Whishaw, and you'll find those details on Camilla's page as well.
Fantastic.
Camilla, thank you for coming. Thank you for all that information you've given us. I think people will start to look now a little bit broader if their horses, if they need something, if something's just not working for their horses. And great to know that you do distance consults if they do need to talk to you and they've got the contact details and everything. So thank you for talking to us today, and we hope to have you back again sometime soon to talk in a bit more depth about some of these areas.
Thanks so much, Glenys. It's been fantastic. And, I look forward to talking more again soon and connecting with your fantastic audience more. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.